Good afternoon. We are delighted that you are joining us today for our fourth Juneteenth Lunch and Learns, which has been a series that we've been doing all week. So the Lunch and Learns were intentionally placed throughout the city because we wanted to highlight and show several of the community centers here in the Asheville area. We were hoping communities would get out of their comfort zone and move to other areas as we're doing the Lunch and Learns. We have two wonderful panelists, Apostle Inez D. Ray, I didn't forget the D, and Reverend Blount. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves in their own way and share their experience of Black churches in the Asheville area. I'm going to turn it over to Apostle Ray first and let her introduce herself and share some, and then she will turn it over to Reverend Blount.
Good afternoon to everyone here. Give honor to my Lord and Savior, Jesus the Christ. And honor to Dr. Simmons and the MLK committee members and each of you in your respective positions. I am Apostle Inez Davis Ray, and I am a native Ashevillean. I pastor God's Ray of Hope non-denominational church located at 26 Mardale Circle, just to your left and to my right. On Mardale Circle. I have to say this, my vision, and I started the church in 1998 December, and my vision then was not to have a Black church. However, being a Black person, people sometimes assume that your church is entirely Black. I certainly am not opposed to anyone who pastors a totally Black church, but that was not the vision that the Lord gave me. It was a multicultural ministry to reach people of all ages. However, I do know the importance, having been born here in this city, of having Black voices together to speak on one accord. And the Black church has and had the ability to do that. They could come together a lot of times in their basements, in their homes, and a lot of times in what my mother said was a brush harbor. They would come together and in these instances where they could not speak out in other arenas, but they could come together in a facility known as the church. They would come to worship, so it was understood that they came to worship. But they had many, many meetings there regarding the political climate and the legal climate that was going on in this city. I'm just calling to memory one year when there were like 7 or 8 Black young men that were charged with rape in the Ashton Park. It was one of those times when the Black people came together in churches, not necessarily the same church, but they would come together. Word would get around that we're meeting here, and this is what we're meeting about. So it was not all about a relationship with God or bringing people to Christ. That certainly is and was their primary concern, but mostly they could come together and come to some agreement, because if you understand this, if you are in the minority and you're opposing each other, then that's going to lessen your strength to be able to accomplish what you set out to accomplish. So the Black church, Black people would come together. Sometimes people of other colors would come and join in with this group to get their ideas and their thoughts together and their commitment that they would make together to speak out against whatever the establishment may have brought up. And sometimes, and most times, it was because of some negative things or some untruths, some illegal things that were done or said. So I'm going to pass it over to Reverend Blount at this time.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Alfred Blount. I'm pastor of Tridestone Baptist Church here in Asheville. I've been there 24 years. I'm not a native of Asheville. I was originally born and raised in Monroe, North Carolina, but a lot of the same issues that have taken place here took place there. And I guess when we talk about the role of the black church, we have to look at it then and now, realizing, as Apostle Ray said, the church was sort of the center of the community. It was the place where you went for worship. It was the place you went for to socialize. It was the place you went to get political information. It was the hub of that community. So the church played a vital role in making sure that the community members knew what was going on, that they were aware of changes that were being made. They were kept up to date as to what needed to be done. And because of the proximity of the church and the community, because it wasn't like it is today where majority of our churches, we are not in a so-called black community, but a lot of times we find that even churches who are in predominantly black communities, people are driving into those churches. They don't live around the church. They don't live down the street from the church. So you've got to look at it from a different standpoint in that, yes, the church was the center of the community. And even today, we still have to keep that same momentum. We still have to be a vital role, but we've got to do it a different way, because whereas you could come out the church and talk to the people that you're trying to get to, then you can't do that now. They're not in the community. So what are we doing to still be that advocate for our people, and at the same time not losing that touch with our people? Because a lot of times you hear it said often, what is the black church doing? What is the church doing? What are the preachers doing? Well, we're living in a different time, so we've got to do things a different way. We've got to approach it differently. And sometimes the progress or the actions are not seen as relevantly as they were when you could walk out on the church steps and call and people come and you could have a meeting right then. So we've got to continue to be that voice, but we've got to be that voice in reaching in a different way.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And even being a quote unquote a black church, you want people, you want to put ideas out there that will provoke people to right thinking. Because I am a black person doesn't mean we're a black church, does not mean we're going to jump on every bandwagon that comes along, but to be to scrutinize, to be prayerful, to be I think the word is to have discernment about what you want to get involved in. So all of these things is required of the black pastors, the black churches, and black people, and certainly every other person that has breath in their bodies to want to come together to do the right thing for the communities in which we live, to bring us together in unity and in love. I think that was possibly the overall arching too of the black church. People coming together saying, this is going on or that's going on, but how can we come together to make our communities, to make our city, to make Asheville a better place to live, and also to get out the vote. That is most critical in the black churches, to get people out to vote who sometimes think that my vote won't matter. But if they come to church and they come to meetings that you have, then you can explain to them, you can get the word to them to get to someone else who may think voting you say, well, it's the church. It's just supposed to be about reading the Bible. No, the Bible encompasses all of every aspect of our lives. There is not a part of our life that the Bible does not touch in some way. And certainly the political arena, those people that we want to put in office should come under a level of moral conduct. And so we come together as a black church to bring people together, to have them to foster good ideas and better understanding about who to vote for and what to vote for, and also what not to vote for.
I'm sitting up here, and as Apostle Ray is talking, I'm having thoughts, and I had made some notes, but then I've reached that age where if I don't write something down, it's not going to be there. But when we think about the church of yesterday, and again, it being the center of the community, being the center of what was going on, we also have to take into account today that there are many things that are vying for the attention of our community, vying for the attention of the people who are part of our church. And we have other options. There was a time when the church was our only source of help. It was our only source of information. It was our only source of community. But we've grown, we've come a long way. We've got organizations that we're a part of. We've got sports teams that we're a part of. There are many things that keep us from gathering in the church, gathering in that place that has always been the center of our community. So as a church, as we are moving forward, again, the role of the black church, what is our role today? Our role is still to teach. Our role is still to reach. Our role is still to educate. But again, we have to do those things in a different way, in a new way, in a way that even though you may not be in our community, you may not be next door to us, we present it in such a way that it catches your attention and you want to be a part of whatever it is we're doing, whether it's meeting for something that's taking place in the city. Maybe there's been a killing or there's been some mistrust on the part of police. We have to be able to reach you where you are and still bring you to where you need to be. So again, the church has got to reach out. We've got to teach. We've got to do all that we can to make sure that we still are that main vital source of information. Because again, where you get your information will determine what your information is. And as Apostle Ray said, if your information is coming from someone who may not have the same perspective as you, then you may hear one thing when in reality it is completely different. And if you're not willing to get the information, how are you going to get it? It's up to the church to make sure that the right information gets to the right people at the right time in a timely fashion so that we can act and not always be reacting. We are good I can react to anything. But what about acting before it gets to that point of reaction? What about having the mindset or the insight to see it coming and make plans on how to deal with it rather than chasing after it after it's out there in front of you, trying to figure out what am I going to do or how are we going to do? And again, it comes back to the church. As a church, what are we doing to reach? What are we doing to teach? What are we doing to educate so that people are still looking at the church as a source of vital information, as a source of a place that I can go to? If I can't go to the city, if I can't go to the commissioners, if I can't go to city council, I can still go to my church and get what I need to get and be informed and make decisions that are in the best interest of not only me, but those who are part of my community.
Absolutely. And I was sitting here as Reverend Blount was speaking. I was reminded of my husband, who's now deceased. But one of the things that he would say to me when he and I would have discussions, and I think is appropriate for the church as well, he said, we need to get it from a reliable source. The church is a reliable source. That we are people, we can't just, Reverend Blount and I can't just live any kind of way And if we are, then somebody should call our attention to it. So we should be, the church and those representatives, leaders in the church, should be people that you can get reliable information from. So it's incumbent upon us as leaders to get to the bottom of things, to find out what the truth is, to go places that maybe some of you and other people may not go into those areas to learn the truth. Sometimes people say, well, who was there black other than you? I was there. And so I would like to consider myself as being a reliable person. If I hear something and I don't understand the gist of it, then I'm going to ask questions. Maybe not publicly, but I'm going to get to someone at some time so that when I repeat that information is going to be accurate. In other words, you can take it to the bank. That's what the church should be about. We should not be chasing down rumors and innuendos, but after the truth, so we can impart the truth to those that sit in front of us, to those that we encounter even on our walks. And I'm so excited to be here today to speak to you today. And my prayer to the Lord was, get me out there a little more so that I can share what you have given me. There is much to know from the Word of God. There is much to know from being places and opening it up. You say, well, I don't go to church. Well, maybe that's somewhere you might want to go. I'm not saying that when you go there, you might make the decision to join that church or anything like that, but it would keep you informed. It would keep you in contact with other people. And so that's what the black church did. On Wednesday night, they went to church. They said for prayer meeting, but that was social hour. On Sunday afternoon, they'd been in church up to 3 o'clock. And they weren't listening to the preacher all that time. But when church was over, I remember in my mother's time, she said they would take their baskets of lunch with them. So then after church was over, they have church at a certain time. And then after that, they'd stay around and communicate and find out what was going on in the city. So that was then. But even now, when you have them for that 1 hour, maybe hour of 15, 30 minutes, they're not staying past that, then you have to be informed, give them some good information, and I would tell you this, whet their appetites so they'll come back for more. And then when they find out in the black churches or in your churches, synagogues, wherever you did, when they find out you have good information, then they'll be able to say, okay, I got it from a reliable source. I know I can repeat this. I know this to be a fact. I know it to be the truth. And truth is important. Truth is critical.
Just had another one of those thoughts get away. But as we're sitting here and as I'm looking around the room, one thing that I see that is important in this room is it's not just old people. It's not just senior citizens, but there is enough sprinkling of young people in here. And as a church, and I think many of us as churches, we are guilty of this. We don't ever listen to the young people. We don't want to hear what they've got to say. And we've got to understand, we were once young before. The only difference is now, when I was young, nobody ever asked me, do you want to go to church? It was understood that on Sunday morning, you were going to church. I can hear in my mind my mama and grandmama saying, you can stay out as late as you want Saturday night, but Sunday morning, you go into church. Now we say, do you want to go? Do you feel like... I didn't have feelings till I was grown because it didn't matter what I felt. I had to do what they told me to do. But as a church, we've got to understand the young people are important to making sure that not only that the church continues to move forward, but also that the information gets to those that it needs to get to. The young people, those of you who are young, you can go in places that some of us will never go into. And you're going to reach people, you're going to be in contact with people that we may never cross paths with. That's why we've got to educate you so you can educate someone else. And again, we can't cut ties with the youth, but how can we work together? How can we do things that are going to promote the church, promote the betterment of our community, promote what is right, and do it together? Because we've got to have each other, because guess what? Those of us who are 50 plus, chances are we've got less time in front of us than we do behind us. So we've got to prepare somebody to continue what we've started. We've got to prepare somebody to carry this thing on, just like the MLK Association. Dr. Simmons has got to be preparing somebody now that when she's unable to, that the work of the association doesn't stop. The work of the church can't stop. We've got to prepare and educate those that are coming behind us so that when we are sick or we are, pass off the scene, whatever the case may be, we don't have to worry about, well, what's going to happen to the church? What's going to happen to our community? And we've got to teach the young how to do it and do it in the right way. They are not going to respond the way our seniors did in during segregation. They're not going to do that. They don't have the temperament. They have not been taught, hold your peace. They are going to verbalize what needs to be verbalized, and sometimes it's not going to come across in the most poetic way that you would like for it to come across. It's going to have a lot of color and a lot of flair, if you know what I mean. And am I saying that's wrong? No. But we got to teach them how to do it right. Know how far to go up to that line and still maintain what you're trying to maintain. So again, seeing the youth, that's important. This is a good thing, because a lot of times seniors, we want to do what we want to do, youth want to do what they want to do, but it's time that we come together and realize that as a church, as the role of the church, we've got to make sure that gap is bridged, and that the church is meeting the needs of the young people, and the young people are contributing to what the church is doing also.
I absolutely agree with that. I'm a parent of a 13-year-old. I won't point her out. She's in here. But you'd be surprised at the things that young people and the provocative thinking that they have. We sometimes don't, we don't think what they have to say is important, and it is. My daughter said to me, after COVID, we had to restructure things, and everybody did during the COVID time. And so when we were back in the facility, we didn't go back to having all the things that we were having before COVID. But she came to me and she said, Mom, we need to start that back again, And I looked at it, and it had occurred to me that it was time to, reconvene this, but I hadn't acted on it. But she had already thought about it. Now, some people say, well, she's just, at that time, she was 12. She said that, yes, and we need to hear what they are saying. And and some of my friends say, you let your daughter speak to you like that. You let her say that to you. I want to know what she's saying. We need to know what they're saying. We need to know what they're thinking. And if we keep, and in the black churches, in the black families, it's critical. Let us listen to our children. Listen, we're not so sanctified and holy that we can't hear a word that's not nice. We look, we've been there and done that, and some of us still doing it. So I mean, we can say, well, I don't think that's right. We can say that, but go ahead and tell me what's on your mind. That's key in home and in the church. It's key to listen to people. Even, I found thank you for talking about older people. I'm probably the oldest one in here. I start to say the cutest, but somebody get mad. But are you 78 yet? See, thank you. I'll see you after this. I got to check. I'll cash app you. Okay, let me bring it up today. But it's important to hear what other people have to say, whether they look like you or not. They'll do you good and they'll help you too if you will listen. And if it's something that you don't want to receive, then, file it in, put it out your mind. I'm reading a book now. It was published in 1974, a little pamphlet written by Thomas Kilgore Jr. He was from Brevard originally, Bethel Baptist Church. And the name of it is I Kept on Praying. And he talks about his life, how when he was 12 or 13, he was arrested for the officer followed he and three of his friends in a car, and they had parked. And he said, you whistle at this woman, this white woman. He said, well, no, he said, no, I didn't. He was like, but then later on, the whole of it is he was arrested and he was sentenced. And because of the community coming together in Brevard, his lawyer said, they were going to give him some time. And his lawyer said, he's just a juvenile. So what they came to the agreement was, I haven't finished the book yet, but the part where I am now is that he would leave the city. He had come to finished the ninth grade, but he would leave the Brevard and that he would not return to that Brevard for a whole nother year. And so then he was brought to Asheville, North Carolina, and attended Stevens Lee High School. Thomas Kilgore Jr. Like I said, and he attended Morehouse College and, he did well. Everything that negative, can I stand up a moment? Everything that's negative that happens to us does not have to negatively affect us for the rest of our lives. I know that's a hard one. I'm 78, and I found out some of those negative experiences that I had, provoked me to do better, to seek better, to want to know better, and in the process, help somebody else. See, it's not just for you. You say, why am I going through this? You're going through it for a reason. Black people, we went through it for a reason. White people, whatever you went through is for a reason. Now let's come together and get our reasons together and understand each other, thank you, and be a better community, a better society because of it. We're here in this city. Let's work together. I think that's the reason why we're here today. To work together. Regardless of what we look like on the outside. And if you're cuter than I am, that's fine. I'm not mad. You're real cute. I'm not mad at you. And so let's work this thing together and support each other.
And I'm going to step in for just a second, because we do want to leave some time for questions and answers. So I also want to say that we had a third participant, so I'm going to relieve y'all of some of your time, because I had originally told them 15, 20 minutes. But most of you know that Reverend LaPrince Edwards has been moved from the Asheville area. Oh, yes, and he is now a pastor in a church in Maryland. And so he was our third panelist today that could not be with us. So as we transition to some questions and answers about the role of the Black church, I want to just share a couple things. So Reverend Edwards and I tease each other. I tell him he's a distant cousin because they AME and I'm CME, Christian Methodist Episcopal. And so I was the district chair of the Board of Christian Education and Formation for the Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Greenville District for a number of years. And so what we focused on was education, particularly with the Christian Education Board and Foundation. And so one of the things I want us to leave today with is the church is getting away from programs to ministries. From programs to ministries. And what you heard here earlier was that we've got to involve our youth. And so when we think about ministries and we think about how they're different from programs, ministries are long-term and they meet the need of your community. Think about that. They're long-term and they meet the needs of your community. So when we talk about, in my role, I currently am the local Board of Christian Education Director and for St. Luke's CME Church down in Tryon, North Carolina. Our claim to fame is that's the home church of Nina Simone, for those of you that knew of Nina Simone. And growing up in that church, her parents were instrumental. Her father was the superintendent of Sunday school, and but also was a community leader. And so he would put us in his car. He would take the young people, put us in his car, and take us to different events. I actually remember him taking my siblings and I to the county fair one year. And then his wife, Mrs. Wayman, and Nina Simone's last name was Wayman, for those of you that are not familiar with her. So her mother was a Methodist minister in the church there at St. Luke. Nina grew up playing the piano for the gospel choir. She could play anything at a young age. I tell people I didn't know her that well. Nina, actually, her sister Frances married one of my cousins. And so our families grew up not only in the church, not only in the community, but intertwined. And to watch the role of the black church, particularly down in Polk County and Tryon, was very interesting. Mr. Wayman, Nina's father, owned a little country store. He was truly an entrepreneur. He owned a country store. He owned a dry cleaning company that he didn't have for long because it was burnt. It mysteriously caught on fire. So you can read it in between the lines. And then he did yard work. But the other thing that he did, he always had his ear to what was going on in the community. And he would, I recall as a kid, him coming through the community and saying to us, don't be out in the yard and on the streets around, and, I'm going to just say 2 o'clock. I don't remember what time it was. He said, because there's a group of Klansmen coming through, riding through the neighborhood. And so that black church during that time, the particularly late 60s, were very in tune with social justice movements and what was going on and being the ear for the community, because they saw him as somebody that was working around, but he was listening. He had his ear to what was going on. And so as we think about moving from programs to ministries, we need to meet the needs for all of our population, all of our communities. And so, in the CME Church, we talk about the children ministry, and that's, even though we say it's 0 through, I think, 6 or 7, you can't do a whole lot with somebody that's not even born. But we get that programming thought around what is curriculum for them, and what does that look like, and what should be the educational piece for that. For the young adults, what should they be looking at? What should we be sharing for the adult population? And so we look at things that are ministering to the whole body. During COVID, and we still are not over COVID, but during the early days of COVID, the church was instrumental in getting the news out reliably around what it is. And so that led to a lot of health ministries in our churches that focused on eating right, exercising, protecting yourself from diseases, knowing your family history. one of the things we don't do is we don't talk about diseases and illnesses that are in our family. And so we need to know that history so that we can protect ourselves. The music ministry. I recall as a kid, an older lady in our church, Mrs. Emma Jones, she was the mother of the church. I remember being on the gospel choir, and the first time we brought drums into the church. You would have thought we had come in with, I don't know what, but she gave us that look. But by the time she got where she was declining in health, she realized that was a ministry that we needed to keep the young people in the church and active. We, at one point, had a group, young kids that came every Sunday, or actually I would take the church van and go around the community and pick them up, and we would cook breakfast for them. And a lot of times they didn't even stay for Sunday school. But that wasn't the point. The ministry was feeding neighborhood children that weren't getting a meal at home. If they stayed, wonderful. If you're planting that seed. So we have to move from short-term programming, and I'm hard on the CMEs about church budgets, and that goes to the annual conference that's not even in your local community. And so programming is usually around raising funds, where ministries is meeting the needs of people in your community. So with that, we're going to open it up for a few questions, and I'll try to bring the microphone around, or if you will have a question, then kind of come up to the front so that we can get you on camera. I'll bring you the microphone. We won't swing around. We'll just let her stay off camera.
Hi, my name is LaVie. My question is, well, I'm going to start with a statement. My generation is leaving the church in droves. We are a social justice generation, my generation and younger. You spoke on the historical context of youth not having a voice, not having a voice and not having an option to go to church. This generation is more vocal, and like you said, Apostle Ray, not as nice. How do you navigate the current political, racial justice? If we're talking about the political climate within the church, and how do we collaborate, and how do we get the voices of our youth, and the phrase that a child should lead, and passing the baton, like you said, for Ms. Simmons to take over. If there is a disconnect between generations because of the political climate, how do you suggest issues such as the LGBTQI community, which is excluding all of our populations, because y'all mentioned that we should be impacting all Black people or all of our community. But if you're saying that we have, we should select leaders who have a moral compass, that can be subjective. What is right and wrong? How do we bridge that gap? And are there platforms? Are there conversations that are happening between intergenerationally individuals with different belief systems who say, if we're going to be exclusive, that means our brothers and sisters that are gay, queer, LGBTQIA+. How are we having those conversations? What platforms? How are we including everyone so that the baton can be passed?
Tough question.
Well, that was a litany of questions. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to be selective as to what questions I answer. In the first one, I want to make a correction about what I said or what I meant. I don't mean that young people are not nice when they say things, use profanity or curse words or cuss, as some people say, because I was the best cusser there was, and still know all the words. So I'm not saying that people aren't nice. I'm saying they have a different way of expression. So I want to first of all clear that up.
Thank you. I understood that. I wasn't using.
Yeah. I thought I heard you say that. I was saying that they're not nice, but we all have something in us that we could improve upon. The LGBTQ community. I am not I'm going to speak to it publicly because I have a grandson who has decided that he was born as a boy, but now decides he's going to be a female. This is what I said to my grandson. I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong, but I'm not going to love you any less than I love you when I thought was there when you were born. I'm not going to love you any less than I did before. If what we do is wrong, this is what I say in God's Ray of Hope Church family. If you come in the church and you find through the preaching or the ministry of the word or doing the worship experience, if the Holy Spirit does not convict you, neither will I. That's not my place. I'm staying in my place. It's not for me to determine that you're stealing and it's wrong. You have to come to that understanding yourself. Whatever it is but it is what I'm supposed to do, I believe, is to tell you the truth as I understand it to be. Like I said, you had a litany of questions, but those two I wanted to address. I'm not going to love you any less if you come in here tomorrow looking differently than you did today. And I hope you feel the same about me, because I tell you, every day I'm not the same. Some days I'm a little fiery than others, and some days I'm quiet and listening and being observant. So if you let me be me, I'm going to let you be you. And I'm going to let God do what he does. If you believe in God, if you believe in Jesus, then it's going to be the conviction from that entity that will any other question quick question you want me to answer before I move?
Where are those conversations happening, like in our community? I just don't see where it's happening, where it's multi-generational and we're talking about these issues in a way that's not so explosive. It's not, oh, you're going to go to hell, because a lot of people can't live in their truth, don't feel like they can come to the church. And so where is the platform?
Well, I think, okay, and for me, I think part of it is that we have lumped everybody into one pot. Okay, because one church believes this and one church, now you know what I think. And so if you want to come to God's Ray of Hope Church, you already know what I think. I'm going to not try to twist your arm and make you believe anything, but I'm going to tell you the truth as I understand it to be. So I think it's unfair for you say, well, at the church, we lump them all together and say, this, they won't let me do this. But like I said, if you're not satisfied there, move on to somebody else. Go listen to what's being said in the different churches, and then make your decision. That's where I'm on that.
Okay, I think, and this is me talking. I think that when you ask the question, where are those conversations happening? They're not, because we're afraid. We are not comfortable, and we're because of the fact that if I sit down and have that conversation, I'm going to either have to be one way or the other. But it's not that you got to be one way or the other, but the thing is to be willing to listen to the other person, to hear what they're saying, to hear where they're coming from, because we're not always right. And if we, as believers, Christ is our example, we are to love because he loved. So if we love, he didn't say love because your ideas lined up with we agree on everything, but I've got to love you for who you are. I've got to love you as a person. But we do need to start having those conversations because of the fact that, and when we have those conversations, be willing to realize it is a tough conversation to have, and be willing to know that we don't know all the answers, but listening to a person, not condemning them, but listening. We've got to be, because we haven't always been where we were. And the scriptures tell us that the wages of sin is death. It didn't say there was one sin bigger than any other. Just because I'm not doing that or what you're doing, my sin's still going to send me to hell if I don't accept Christ. So again, the conversations are not being had. They're not being had if I'm having the conversation, I'm having it with somebody with the same beliefs I got, because I'm comfortable with that. And I don't want to, for whatever reason, maybe I can't explain why I feel the way I feel. But as long as I'm talking to somebody who has the same ideas, then I'm good. But we do need to sit down. Communication is key in every aspect of the church, every aspect of our community, everything that we do. We've got to communicate, because even in our communication, sometimes we may feel that we're communicating, but communication is you hear and understand what I'm saying, not just hearing it, because sometimes we hear what the person says, but we don't understand the meaning behind it. But we say, I heard you. You heard the words, but you didn't hear the heart behind those words. So we've got to realize that communication is hearing and understanding what the person is saying to you as the way they're saying it, not the way you interpret it sometimes.
And I would just add to that, part of the role, particularly as I see it as the director of Christian education, is to start those conversations. And so that's one of the reasons we wanted this segment to be part of Juneteenth celebration, is to have some of those conversations. But also that we have to train our church leaders to be comfortable and open and have those conversations. So I think back on the years of being a district director of Christian education with 30-something churches that were reporting to me in terms of education and outreach and workshops and leadership conferences. One of the key things that I did was the adults didn't plan the sessions. We asked the children, we asked the youth, we asked the young adults, what are the topics that you want to be discussing? And what should be the format for those discussions? And are you willing to lead that discussion? And so until we've changed that mindset around how the Black church has operated, and I'll say that from a point of coming from having 3 uncles that were ministers. Had 2 uncles that were CMEs, ministers, uncle that was a Baptist minister, and a mother that could hold her ground around our kitchen table with her 3 brothers. And the conversations we had growing up were always very outside of the traditional church conversation. Not just around LGBTQI plus population, but individuals having children and not married, the clothing people are wearing. So having those discussions and finding a place to even question where some of that history came from is very important. I think I saw a hand over here.
Could you please tell us other things that go on within the churches besides just the Sunday worship service? For example, maybe counseling. I know you do weddings. I know you do funerals. But programs it might be for children, such as summer camp program, a Sunday school, after-school programs, etc.
And we'll start here.
And I'll speak for Tridestone. We try to have in place those things that will benefit the not only congregation but community. We have tutoring after school. We have a nurses ministry that does health care. We do blood drives. We do health fairs. We've brought the health mobile van to the church. Those type things we encourage members to volunteer in the school systems, to be a part of, the educational process. We try to do things that reach out to those that are incarcerated. Just if there's an issue that affects not only our members, but we want it to be something that will benefit those in our communities. And we try to, get that information out. We've teamed with the church right now. We're in the process. We've done 3 workshops, healthcare directives, last will and testaments, and we're getting ready for one at the end of the month, which will deal with funeral and memorial planning. In other words, talking about those things that in our community are not talked about, that we need to talk about. If something happens to me and I can't speak for myself, does my family know what I want? Do they know that I don't want to be on life support? Do they know I don't want if it's determined that, my quality of life is not going to be good, or that I'm going to be a vegetable the rest of stop it. Don't keep, but we won't have those conversations. We don't have those because if I talk about it, it's going to happen. What do you want at your funeral? Who do you want to sing? Who do you want to speak? You might not want who your family going to put up there. But if you don't ever tell me you don't want that joker talking over you, he up there. Now you laying down there mad, like, why they put this man up here over me? Tell me what you want. So, trying to get information to the community, just, and again, all aspects, education, health care, just things that will benefit us as a people.
Thank you. I haven't left you yet. You provoked me. No, ma'am. Okay. I'm not. I've left that. Yes. That's not what I'm speaking about. You talked about the LGBT. I always get those alphabets mixed up. But anyway, you know what I'm speaking about. I'm with you. I hear you. I hear you. But my thing is, why should I beat up on one population of people for their sexual orientation, and then some people who are having sex outside of marriage, those things, and it could be with a man, another woman, or another man, but it's not your wife and not your husband. So, I just want to bring that up. So there's a lot to be discovered in that, putting people aside because of what they want to do sexually otherwise. So getting back to the question of what we do in our church, one of the things that we do and have done for some time is random acts of kindness. I am of the opinion that if you need help, and you need help, the whole community and everybody in the church does not need to know that you are being helped in some way. Sometime we go out and we'll stand at the gas pump, send people out to stand at the gas pump, and it's by discernment. See, I'll give you an example. This one lady, these people were out at the gas station, and this person pumped like $5 worth of gas and was going to put her thing away, and we said, no, go ahead and fill up. That kind of thing. Go to the grocery store, see people. You say, well, they already had food stamps. Well, maybe they need some toilet tissue. Maybe they need some paper towels. So all the ministry that we do may not be in the house, but we're going out trying to meet the needs of the people. And even the clothing store. You're seeing somebody needing a pair of shoes. Well, why would you do that? Somebody behind you in the line. This is what we encourage. And then we're working on a seminar now called Your Family Matters. Some of the things that Reverend Blount talked about, dealing with budgeting, dealing with education, dealing with your power of attorney, those type of things, that setting up a bank account and helping you work through those things. And there's Cash App. There's so many different things that, you can get, even setting up your Gmails and emails and all this kind of things. And so that people are not aware of it. We try to speak to those things to help people setting up their password, how to secure those things so that we don't get in trouble. And even with the best of thinking that you know, and you still can get in trouble. But to educate, that is so critical in the church, is to educate, to have people to have an understanding of what it is expected of them and how to go about doing it, and not be afraid to say, can you help me set up a budget of that? Something like that.
We're out of time, but we're going to have one quick question.
So we all know the importance that the Black church has played in being a foundational place to launch Black people. And we often talk about how our youth aren't as engaged. What leadership positions do you have open at your church? Because I was having a conversation with an executive director, and she was like, what was your first experience with the budget? And I was like, Sunday school. We was trying to win a banner. You know what I mean? So there's all these different ways. You know, my first speaking engagement was the church. I got to do the secretary announcements. What ways in which in your particular church, as we see our young people back here, are there leadership opportunities and ways to grow and launch from the church?
And we're going to ask for a quick response from both of you.
Okay. One thing is just like you're saying, giving them that opportunity. This year we had a program, and we used one of our young men, very quiet, very timid. But because someone worked with him, he got up there and knocked it out of the park. And I mean, everybody's sitting there with their mouth open like, is this the same kid? But you've got to work with them and give them the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'm not going to embarrass my daughter, but she knows in our church, other kids in our church are free to speak their minds in whatever we're having. They pray in the regular service. They sing in the regular service. They read scripture in the regular service. They're active participants in any part of the church that they want to be. If they want to sing, if they want to blow a horn, if they just want to get up and just express how they feel, they have the opportunity to do that. No, there's no restriction on because of their age.
We want to thank you again for coming out, and those of you that have come to multiple Lunch and Learns sessions this week, we are just delighted to see you again. If you would like to receive the monthly e-newsletter from the MLK Association, please sign up for that. Have a good day, blessed day, and thank you again. Let's give our panelists a hand.
I just do want to say this. The book that I was telling you about, I kept on praying. That young man, Thomas Kilgore, not young man anymore, but he ultimately went to work with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and that was my point for bringing him up.